Hello, hello. This is Adelai Brown, your heart coach, and I want to welcome you to season 2 of the Heartline podcast, Heart Talk with Adelai Brown. And I'm so excited today to have such an amazing guest on with us. You know that on the Heartline, we are focused on building heart equity, where we build, create, generate personal, relational, and financial wealth through authentic living. And this gentleman, I can tell you, is creating heart equity. He's building heart equity. And I'm so honored to have him on today. So without further ado, I want to welcome you and tell everyone this is my cousin. Welcome, Desmond Beach.
I was
Welcome,
thank
Desmond.
thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so glad to have you. You all will see throughout the show. Desmond is not only is he an entrepreneur, educator, he's a world-renowned artist and activist in his own right, but he's also my cousin, like I said, and you will see that he's the calm one, and I could get a little excited sometimes, and you'll see that throughout the pod today. So, Desmond, how are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am doing well. I am speaking to you from New York City, um, where I now reside. I was born and raised in Baltimore and lived in DC for 15 years and decided that my life needed a change. And I picked up and left everything behind, gave everything I owned away, and moved to New York to follow this thing that was calling me to be this full time artist. And so now here I am living in the city, grinding every day, trying to make that a reality.
Wow. I mean, you just kicked the door wide open. That is amazing. So, New York is now where you call home for now.
For now, like I wouldn't fully call it home yet, right? But it's
Yeah.
starting to get there. It's starting to feel a bit familiar. So
And that's awesome. I really want to zero in on this thing that was calling you, right? Because I truly believe that we live our best lives and we are our best selves when we are doing what we've been called and created to do. So, tell me a little bit about what you were going through, what made you make that transition from DC for 15 years to pursue art full time?
yeah. Well, that is a great question. And I think about this almost every day that I'm on the subway here, whether I'm going to work or going to my studio or just someplace in the city. I think about that all the time. Like, what made me give up, a perfectly great career as an educator and school administrator, um, doing what I did love, like I thought back about it that when I first started teaching in my early 20s, I went to school with the intention that I wanted to teach because I wanted to bring this love of art that I have to young people. And I knew that the power art has on one's life, to build a sense of self and to give you a new way of communicating and speaking and being seen in the world. And I knew that art was the thing that I felt so comfortable doing, right? That I wanted to bring to young people. So I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I was also an artist, right? And so the more and more that I progressed in my career as an educator, the further and further away I got from making my own work. And, like you try really hard to keep both lives going, to keep both practices going, being an educator and an artist, but it's difficult. Talk to any art teacher, tell you that. They'll tell you that it's hard to like have your studio practice and continue to teach. And so I think after spending so many years in DC, I've been teaching for 20 years, right? Like I in my 20th year teaching, but 15 of them were in DC. And I think that the more and more I taught, I felt like I was just giving and giving and giving and giving, but wasn't receiving. And that I was giving all that I had to my students every day. That when I went to the classroom, everything that I had, I poured into them. And I wasn't resentful at first. You know, and I even hate to say that out loud. I've never even said that out loud, that I was resentful. But I think over some time, I kept going, I'm giving you all of my great ideas, you know, and like have none left for myself. And I think that over years that kind of wore on me. And I kept thinking, but this can't be it. This can't be all of it. And I know that for some, the pandemic was tragic, that there was lots of loss and grief and pain and suffering. But I feel really fortunate that the pandemic gave me clarity and gave me time to sit and be still and really listen to what my heart wanted, what my soul was being called to do. And I just realized that I couldn't do it anymore, right? That my time was up being that full-time educator. Now, have I totally walked away from being an educator? No, I will always be an educator, right? That will always be a part of who I am. But now I think it's time to focus and nurture a different part of who I am. And there was this calling that, and for some people might understand, some might not understand this, but my spiritual practice is it's diverse. Like, I would say that I'm a Christian, but I say I also believe in ancestral worship and things like that as well. And so there is this part of listening to ancestral voices and their teachings, as well as hearing the voice of God and the Holy Spirit. And so for me, all those things at the same time simultaneously was saying, Desmond, you gotta quit, you gotta go. And and I did that, you know, and what is so profound is that I quit my job, and within a week or two, I had an I got an invitation to come to New York, you know, for an entire year, and for free. They were going to give me a place to stay and food to eat for an entire year and just make art. And that, I mean, I knew it
Oh,
before I was doing the right thing, but that really was like, okay, God, okay, ancestors, I think you might be onto something. So I'm really gonna trust y'all, and I'm gonna jump. I'm gonna run with like this faith, and I really haven't looked back. Like, have I had some challenges? Have I had some obstacles? Of course, right? But that's what life is. But I feel so confident and so secure in what I'm doing that those things are just a blip in a larger plan, you know. And so yeah, so I gave everything away. I sent out emails and sent text messages to people saying, "Hey, I have a couch, I have a bed. Do you want it? Like, I have dishes, everything." Like, I just gave everything I had, packed up my clothes, and moved to New York. And like, here I am now, sitting in New York City. Um, which, had you asked me this 5 years ago, I wouldn't have said I would have been doing, you know, but I am.
yeah, yeah.
So so that's the story.
I am very few times am I speechless, but I know some of the story, but to hear it just as a story, not seeing it unfold like that,
Yeah.
just to hear it all together in one presentation is so powerful because it's so many things that you said. I promise I was like, I want to write it down. No, I need to listen. And I'm just like, it'll come back to me. I know it will. But I think the thing that got me the most, there were quite a few things, but the fact that you you quit and 2 weeks later you got the offer to pretty much do what it was that you wanted to do, like without reservation. Like, you come here and do art. Like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do full time. But you did not get that. in the security of your former position. You had to have that in between. You had to have that what do we say, biblical, that wilderness, like coming
Yeah.
out of Egypt going into your promised land, even
Yeah.
though it was a 2 week wilderness for someone. What I feel like, any career or industry that's like a reputable, solid career, like teachers, nurses, doctors, accountants, lawyers. You very seldom hear about them quitting or changing career now, more so. But like coming up, like that was like the creme de la creme. You become a teacher or any of those careers, you're locked in for the next 30 years, 25 years, until you could, draw your retirement. That's that.
Yeah.
So for you to say, I was like, I was giving them ideas, but I didn't have any for myself. As a creator, one, I believe we're all creators. I feel like God put us here to create. A lot of people just don't tap into what it is that they're doing. But one of the things that I find so profound is that our lives blossom and bloom when we really focus on what it is we want to do.
Mm. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, but I think that unfortunately, we always don't have enough confidence, or enough courage to do that thing. Like fear. Oh, fear can stop you in your tracks and keep you stuck. And like, and the idea of like fear and self-worth and all those kind of things, all that kind of talk in your head can keep from doing the thing that you're called to do, right? And like will cloud it and have you not even see clearly. And it's work to get through that, and because I would say growing up, like I have very encouraging parents who always like follow your path, Desmond, whatever you want to do, like follow that thing and do it. I was always told that, right? But
Mhm.
there was something that said to me, oh, but you got this good paying job.
Yeah.
You're living a lifestyle that you didn't imagine you could live, right? Like you are not um worried about how to make the bills every month. Like you get to go on vacation, you get to like hang out on the weekends, like you get to live the life that you want to live. And it's really hard to like also walk away from that, right? Walk away from this level of being comfortable to being uncomfortable. And it's so funny because as an educator, I always tell my students all the time that the only way you're going to learn and gain something new is when your brain has been shifted to a place of discomfort, when you have been taken out of that place of comfort into a place of discomfort is where you really begin to learn and to discover new things. And it's so funny, like how I know that's true, but I wasn't really hearing it for myself, right? Or thinking that that was something that I could do, because you're right. Like growing up, not like from my family in particular, but like you would hear, oh, get that good paying job, get that work
Yes.
for the government, whatever it is, like get that
No,
job,
you heard that from your family in
you
particular,
know.
because we in the same family. Oh,
But
you heard it from them too.
I mean,
Not your parents, but like
yeah,
indirectly, directly. You
yeah,
heard it. You saw it. You get what I'm saying? Even like adopted family, like growing up having friends with parents that might have had good jobs, or like their lives might have seemed a little easier than mine. I
yeah,
found myself gravitating like as an adult, I asked myself, why do you like that? Or why do you want to
yeah,
do that? And when
yeah,
I unpack it, it's because as a child, something was impressionable and
mm,
it was lodged there. Like even hearing you say about like the level of comfort your position gave you, that was comfort that we even have been almost conditioned to say, this is what's fun.
yeah,
Okay, that might be fun, but my soul is still crying out for more.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think it's when I think it's when you get sick and tired of being comfortable, right? Like, and going, I'm gonna live a life just like now. That sounds really crazy. That's just comfortable because like people strive to have a life that's comfortable, right? But
Literally, yeah.
I think when when you're tapped into your calling, and when you're tapped into like knowing what it is you must be doing, you can't take being comfortable anymore, right? Like there has to be you you have to go out and seek and fight for that thing that you're feeling you're called to do, right? And so that was the thing for me that like and I think it's also just being black, right? And like this idea of the legacy and trauma that we have in our bodies and who we are as black people, that like when you get to a level of success, you feel like you have to stay there because you recognize that that wasn't the case for everybody, right?
Yes.
And so when
Yes.
you think you get there, like for me to be a senior level administrator within a school and to be the only black person on the administration in this school, I recognized my position and recognized what I was doing and how that work was also important, but also feeling like, but there's another thing that's also just as important, right? And like that was the thing of being the artist, right? And going, the same way that you have been able to hopefully impact the lives of young people and adults, right? Like, because I also work with educators and the same way you impacted them, I believe that you can do the exact same thing or even more within a larger setting with your art, right? And so I see the work that I make and being an artist as a similar vocation as being an educator. Like
Mhm.
I think it is bringing ideas to people and having them decide what they think about it, right? And to have a conversation. And I think that I do the same thing with art. I make a piece, I put out in the world, and I see how people are going to respond to it, and let's have that conversation. Now, the other layer to that is that my work really is rooted in healing trauma within the Black community, right? And I focus primarily right now on the trauma of those of us of Black in the United States as a result of the transatlantic slave trade, right? And what that means to us and how that trauma lives in our bodies, how we live through enslavement, we live through segregation and Jim Crow, we are living through sanctioned killing of black people in today's time and modern times, right? Like living through that, there's so much trauma in our bodies that excuse me, that like I think right, that's why my calling got so strong to say, oh, we got to heal some of this stuff. And like, yes, that's you doing a great job over there teaching and being an educator and being an administrator, but we got so many people that need some healing, and your work is going to help facilitate that. Your work is going to help people to tap into that and do their own work. Now, do I think my by seeing my work, experience my work, will completely heal all of your stuff? I don't think that's the case, but I think it's the entryway. I think it's the door opening that will touch something in your spirit, within your soul, that you will then begin to address and begin to heal. And so like that's why I sit right now really assured that like I have made the right decisions and right choices that have been guided in this way because there is such a strong pull to do this work right now. And it feels like this is the right time and that it's necessary. And so I'm just trying to be really obedient and I'm trying to really hear those ancestors speak, hear the Holy Spirit speak. And I just want to clarify, like when I say ancestors, I mean my immediate ancestors. So like, our grandparents, our uncles, our aunts that have passed away, cousins, but I also mean those other diaspora. Like
Yeah.
I mean those African ancestors that didn't make it, that chose to jump off of ships,
That chose. Yeah.
who
Yeah.
those who died during the Middle Passage, those who endured enslavement,
Mhm.
those
Mhm.
are also the ancestors that I'm talking about, right? And so there's a whole they're just all around, like they're all around, and I try to be really sensitive um to hear that, and to make the work that I think will also heal their trauma, you know. So yeah.
How did you become who you are?
Oh, I had a praying grandmama.
Now that you did, that you did.
um
You had two of them at that.
well, right, like, and I really do account it to that. I account it to a family who didn't take it for granted, this idea, this concept of being connected to a higher being, right? I spent my
Yes.
entire life in church. My entire life in church. Like there, and I still do it to today, right? Like it is where I feel my most comfortable. I feel my most comfortable in church, and second in my studio.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's by accident, because I think that being an artist is a holy act, and I think it's been
Ooh.
given by God. And so
Mm.
the fact that I feel so comfortable in church and feel equally as comfortable in my studio lets me know that something holy is happening there. But how did I get there? I got there because growing up in my family, church was not an option. Like you were going to church, right? Like you were
Yes.
going. And even when I went to South Carolina,
Oh, you
my
were going to
grandma had
church.
us going to church. And I was like, I don't want to go to no Sunday school. I don't want to, it's summertime. I want to break. Why am I going to
No Sunday school, no Bible school. You the
oh,
reason
let's
why
just say the
Chris
word
didn't
school
go
in
to
it.
Bible school this year. It's you, and you're the reason why. Because your
No.
auntie was like Desmond said, why he got to do that?
Right. Why? I'm right. I'm like, I don't want to go to school in the summer, but I recognize now that that was necessary. That was part of my development and my training. Um, that was necessary to do what I'm doing now, right? And so this finding my own faith, right? Like not because my parents gave it to me, right? Because you go to church on Sundays, and
Yeah,
you want to
yeah.
go to church on the weekends because you gotta go to children's choir rehearsal, you gotta go to usher meeting, you gotta go to youth meeting, like not because
Prayer service,
all that kind of stuff, right?
testimony service.
Right,
Yes.
right. Like all of that, like but but in that, I really am thankful because they presented it to me and allowed for me to find it the best way I could, and what worked for me. And my faith hasn't always been so steadfast, right? Like there have been moments where, like I think about when I first got to undergrad and I was like, why am I praising this white Jesus?
Yeah.
This is the oppressor's Jesus. This is the colonizer's Jesus. And
That
here
white
you
man,
are, this
God.
black
Yes.
man. Why are you worshiping this white Jesus that kept your people in bondage? Right? Like, and but I'm so lucky that I had a professor that said, come here, baby. Let, let's talk, and I did this whole like independent study with this professor, one-on-one, reading African religions and
Yes.
things like that. And I realized how within Christianity, there's so many things that we do in the Black experience of Christianity that's really rooted in traditions in Africa. And
Correct.
once I began to see that, I was like, ah, so I can accept this God because I see how my people, my ancestors, brought what they knew, they embedded it into what they were now being exposed to, and now this has become the way in which they are enduring, right? And so
Yes.
now I see my faith and Christianity as a legacy to that as well. That because I heard all the time, like in my family, oh, we have made it and have endured because of God. Like only way we could like get through all we're getting through, the mistreatment, the not having access, all those kind of things is because God continues to keep us, right? And so that made a big that had a big impression on me, which I talk about now in my work, right? So when I when I make work, I talk about that all the time. I talk about how this is sacred stuff and how it's not simply just something I created, but it's divine work and that I'm being led to do it. And so, yeah, so that's how I got here. Like I got there because I had a family that was like, "You're gonna go to church," and that exposure I'm so grateful for because I would say that I am my most creative when I'm in worship. When I'm
Hmm.
in church,
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
I am my most great. Like I get so many great ideas when I'm in church. Like
Hmm.
at one point, I used to take my sketchbook with me to church.
Yes.
I would sketch out ideas and I would write stuff down as I was in worship. And I'm still making work that I had ideas from when I was in my 20s, like sitting in church, right? And so whenever I'm feeling like there might be like a creative block or whatever, or like I don't know what to make next, I'm like, just gotta go sit in church.
Worship. Go worship.
you
Go
know?
with the joy of the Lord is my strength. That's
Yeah,
what the word says, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
Woo! Oh my gosh. I mean, I could listen. I mean, the to say how phenomenal you are is an understatement. And I'm just gonna make it personal because like every time I look at you, I see my face. And I feel like
I
the older
know.
we get, the more we look alike, Desmond. Like my boys look just like you. Like both of my sons look like they're your children. Um, and I
well,
guess
well, they are.
yeah, you're right, right? Like it's like your when I see your artwork, I your work one I always say I really don't have words. I have a visceral response. Like I'm getting emotional now telling you this.
Mm,
I'm thinking about those little boys and the girl, like their eyes and how they look. Like your art makes me want to go to studios and walk around and see what I see. I'm so serious.
right on.
It's so when you say it's healing, a generational healing process, what I think of like I say there were things wrong with me I didn't realize until I saw this. Like there was a pain there that I saw that this resonated with, but it's equally it's pain equally as much strength.
Mm-hmm.
And it's overpowering. And I've never seen this work in person. Most of the things that I've seen have been pictures. So one thing, I told you last year around this time I was coming to see you, and I know you just moved studios. So I'm literally sitting here thinking like Kevin is gonna be like, what is she up to? Because I don't care if I gotta sleep on your couch, I got to get up there. I have to see it. But the other thing is I think that when I see your work, I feel called to a higher place. When
Mm,
I think about you, I feel called to a higher place. When I think about when you tap into worship and you tap into who God called you to be, how creativity flows.
mm,
And for me, it comes in the form now of writing, speaking, but here lately I've been having this desire to do more writing. Like I've never done songwriting, but for whatever reason I'm like I'm gonna start writing some songs and
mm,
like just different things. But I feel like it's not just a flippant haphazard type of thing. I truly believe every time I'm challenged and back to something you said earlier, made uncomfortable, it's like that discomfort. It's like what is it? Sandpaper. It's like it's scratching off some of that surface and smoothing it out, getting to the truth
mm,
of
mm,
what and who I really am. And you know, I want to commend you because I feel like it's people like you that are calling us forward. Like we have to do this because how many professionals, let's just keep it all the way real. Senior level administrator means you'll be leaving here when your retirement kicks in at 62 or whatever's going on. I don't care if I'm good or bad, nobody's going to put me out. I'll just hop districts, but
Right,
I'm
right,
not going any place at this point,
right,
right?
right.
To leave that, and the thing about it, not so much about leaving it, you hear those stories, but to leave and to jump, like that Steve Harvey video that he went viral with, the jump, but to land in exactly what it was that you wanted,
I
right?
know.
And it wasn't like an overnight thing. Like you talked about, we're talking about a 20-year educational career that you were in, that you were so committed to. And I feel like one, it's so many things running through my mind, but one of the biggest things that I'm hearing from your story is being consistent where you are
Mm,
and being okay with letting that go. Like you didn't, not one time when you talked about this did you talk about it as if all of your educational background and your career was a waste.
mm-mm.
It was like I'm graduating, I'm leaving high school off to college. You see what I'm saying? Like it
Right,
wasn't it wasn't
right.
a wait, like you have this matter of fact presentation of this is who I am. You've always been like that though, Desmond. Like always been like that. You've
Okay.
never been a go along to get along, but always kind. Never bully, never mean, but know how to check people. And when you talk about worship, I have a lot of great memories of you and I, but I think one of my best memories is a more recent memory is when you sang at grandma's funeral. And
Mm,
the
mm,
for me in that time,
mm, mm,
I like it when you say that, your worship is when you're creating, like I even Kevin talks about that, like because he y'all had never met in person, I don't think, before grandma's funeral.
right.
So you met him for the first time at the funeral. He heard me talk about you all the time because I have you, Desmond, my cousin Desmond, and my god brother Desmond, and I love y'all, so I love everybody else too, but like y'all too. It was Desmond's. I was going to name my first child Desmond because I love Desmond so much, right? But it was a girl, so no Desmond. Um, but when you did that, for me, I said, I got to get to a place where I could sing for grandma like that.
Mm,
And I feel like you singing for grandma. And you
mm,
said that. You when you talk about your ancestors, that's what I'm hearing. And I understand that too, but like it's so many things that I think that really
mm,
it resonates to you who you are, and in your artwork. I feel like you have God put you in a position to create full time because the work has to go out in the earth. These pieces have to go. We need these things out there. Like yeah, like when you all see Desmond's artwork, and I pray that through editing process we could have something in the thumbnail or at the end we could put a couple pictures up, but words cannot express. I have everybody is like it's almost like a I feel like when you say you're thinking about our ancestors transatlantic prior to, imagine the anxiety of going to the land of no return. Just imagine knowing you are caught and going. Like when I see your work, I feel like everybody's included. I don't feel like it's not like the cotton field, like we started there, like the sharecropping culture that our parents grew up in, that they were raised in, our grandparents grew up. No, it's like everybody who came before them and who came before. Like your work represents like Africa.
mhm.
Like for me, when I see your work, I see Africa, but I also see the hood in Charm City, all at the same time.
Right,
You
it's
know,
all of it.
you know what I mean? Hold on one second, my battery about to die. I don't want this thing up. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Excuse the noise in the back. This is awesome. So, but as I was saying, I feel like, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on today, because you did discuss how the pandemic for you, we understand the death and everything, but it was a refreshing and a renewal. But I also see a death. It was like a death to this old way, and
Mm.
it's like this um um rebirth. I felt like, just from a personal space, just when you told me you were thinking about doing it, and then you were like, I'm doing it. Like, the difference between the thinking and the doing might have been a week or 2 weeks. Like you, I'm sure you were ruminating on it before you said something. But when you were like, well, I prayed about it. I'm look, I'm out. Look, pray for me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know what's really funny about that though is that again, this idea of like ancestral voices and really listening to them. Like ancestral voices show up in multiple ways, right? Like it could be remembering a conversation. It could be like remember hearing them say something. It could be also a dream. I remember like my right before I made the decision that I was going to resign, I because it was a pandemic, right? So we were all home, and I took a nap, and I remember like my mother's mother, so my grandmother
My
came.
namesake.
Oh yes, Ruth Adelai Brown. Yeah.
Yes.
Um. Um.
Now
Came,
I'm Adelai Brown now. Isn't that funny? Just a little caveat.
it's
But
great.
anyways,
Yeah. Yeah. She came to me in a dream, and my grandma was like 4'7", like really small, right? Like I stood a good 2 feet above her, you know. And it was this. She was in my dream, and she was pulling my arm. I was in bed, and she was pulling me out of bed, and she was like pulling me and pulling me and pulling me to come with her. And I was like, okay, she's telling me it's time to go. Like I gotta get out of where I am. Like I
mm,
gotta move on. And like that was like done. Period. It's a wrap, right? Like
yeah.
it's a wrap. Like I'm gonna do that. So sorry, but like you were saying something, but I just thought about that. Like I thought about how like during the pandemic was such a great opportunity for me, right? It really helped to put a lot of things in perspective. It gave me clarity. And like it put into focus those things that are really important, right? Like and I had a chance to look back, and go, that's like I'm an old man. But I had a chance to like look back like all things I had done and was like, is that all that you want to do? Like if you were
Mm,
to leave today, would you be like, yes, I accomplished the things that I was meant to do, right? Like, and obviously like that answer was like, no, I haven't accomplished all I have to do. I have so much more I have to get done that I have to do. And like and you're right, like it wasn't as if I looked at all of my prior experiences and as an educator and all that kind of stuff was like just preparing me for this thing. Like I had to do all those things. I had
yes.
to learn all those skills of like really how to see people, like how to like see and hear people. Because we work with young people, right? Like you have to be so in tune to like what they're not saying to you, right? Like
Correct.
what are you not saying to me? That like, and I know there's something there, right? Like, and I still use those skills now, right? Like when I'm dealing with people here in the city, or if I'm in my studio, it's like, okay, I'm like, what am I not saying in this piece? Like, what is the thing I still have not said yet that it needs to be said right now? And so it feels really good to hear the work is responding to you that way because I do see it as my act of worship, right? I see making my work as my act of worship, and I want people to be changed by it. Like I want them
Oh gosh.
to see something, and as I'm doing the work, I'm healing my own stuff, right? Like I'm healing my own, generational trauma that sits in my body, right? Like, and so as I make the work, I'm healing myself and hopefully healing other people along the way, and maybe you respond to it so much because we share DNA, like we share a particular lineage as well, and that as I'm speaking to it for me, it's also speaking to you as well, right? And like what you have in you.
Yeah.
But I do think that it goes beyond that. I think that even the colonizer, even the white person can walk away seeing my work and hopefully have some sense of change or transformation. And like, and for them, I'm hoping that they're going, oh, there's work I have to do because I recognize that there's also trauma within my lineage, right? Because the people that I come from were the prisoners.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
they were the ones who created all this trauma, right? And like I have to own that for my ancestors, right? The same I'm
Yes.
feeling what my ancestors have gone through, you got to do the same thing on your side as well, right? And so, but ultimately, I make the work for Black people because I love Black people. Like I love Black
Yeah.
people, right? And I want us to be so healthy and so whole that we are unstoppable. Like the amount of creativity and innovation that like just runs through our veins as Black people, the world has not even seen like
Mm-mm.
all that we could do, right? Like we are just scratching the surface, right? And like, which is why I'm really happy about what you're doing of like trying to make this platform where people can come and heal and do their work. Because if we do the work, we only get better, we only get stronger, we only um begin to do what we're called to do, right? Like once we start to heal that stuff, right? And like
Correct.
and the heart stuff is it will save your life. If you do the hard work, it will literally save your life. Like you'll be healthier in mind, body, and soul, right? Like
Mind, body, and soul.
all those things, right? And like, and when we do that, we'll make different decisions. We'll make better decisions for ourselves, right? Whether it is around our finances, whether it's around how we enter into relationships with people, where we choose to live, what we choose to do, like all those things will be impacted and will change if we do our hard work, you know, like and like that's what I feel like I'm doing now. I feel like I'm doing my hard work. I feel like I'm doing the work that is necessary, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. You said something early on about having the confidence to do it, like to step out and do what you did. I think I asked like, how did you get there? And I think sometimes confidence is overrated. I think you're not going to be confident. You just got to go by faith. Like you're going to be scared. And
Yeah,
I'm doing it
yeah,
scared.
yeah.
And I don't know what I'm doing. And I still am going to try. We're going to see what this ends up being. And,
Right.
I'm saying from me personally, I've been playing it too safe. And listening to you talk, I can say that. And I mean, I don't have any reservations about saying it. Like I've been playing safe. And when you are creative and you step out some, it's almost like you can like you get in people are watching people swimming, right? And then you have people right along the edge, kind of easing in when it's cold. And but then some people just like dive straight in, like, look, let me
Yeah.
just get in here. I need to do what I need to do. And like listening to you, I'm like playing around the edge, coming into the water, but like hearing you, it's like, no, you really have to dive in. You don't really know what's in the water, but you know that you're in there for a reason. And that's what you have to stay focused on. And I just think that it's like you doing that is hard work, right? A lot of people think, well, I just got to sit down and talk about my feelings. No, it's more about acknowledging that there's a shift that has to take place and I have to keep moving. Who am I becoming as a result of these decisions? Or who do I have to be
Hmm.
to make these decisions, right? And I I I'm really like thinking about how the doors open once you start walking. Like I feel like your story is such a testament to walk, get like move, go
Hmm.
do something. Like that comfort is not comfort. You're really not comfortable. You know what I'm saying? And I it's I think a lot of people out there are waiting for like that perfect opportunity. They're waiting for all the chips to line up, all the ducks to be in a row. They're waiting for everything. And then once that happens, then I can move. That isn't how it works. I mean, even today, us getting on here, technical stuff. I'm on the third device, but look at us
Yeah.
moving on through. This conversation needed to happen. And it's not always going to be comfortable. It might not work out ideally the way you thought it would, but you have to, like how Miss Brown was pulling you, like we got to come. I feel like there are people that feel that pull and they're not moving, and it's like dead weight. And listening to you talk, I honestly, like, I know you're sitting there, but it sounds like you're flying. It does. It
Yeah.
sounds like you're flying. I know when we fly, there's turbulence there. There are
Mhm.
things going on in that dimension that we would never know about down here. But the fact that you're staying in the air and you're moving, and the thing I know about you is it's only up from here.
Mm.
It's only up from here. So I guess my other another question I like to ask you is, being you do have a background, I consider any career like corporate. When you're not working for yourself, you have a corporate educational background, right? So how how was it, what do you feel like it was hard to be yourself, like to be unapologetically black in your career? And if you had any challenges with that, how have you been working through that now, being out, independent entrepreneur, artist, and being your, like, removing some of those um layers, I guess I would say, if
Yeah.
you had them.
Yeah. Well, I haven't had a problem being, you know, unapologetically black. Like it is, that's what I do. Like you look at me like I'm black, right? Like I'm wearing a shirt that says Black Lives Matter right now, right? Like it's how I live. Like it is just my existence. Were there moments of challenge working in predominantly white institutions, being one or one of a few? Yes. Like I have been fortunate enough within my career to be a lot of the first to do things with for particularly like companies and institutions, right? And so um I look at it as a blessing that like God has allowed for me to have access to places to push them further along within like their work of like equity, right? And fully seeing people in their humanity. And so when I was a teacher, I started out teaching in predominantly black schools in Baltimore City, right? I was in the public school system, right? So
Okay.
so like being the schools I worked in, fortunately, like were majority like black faculty and black student body. And we really got to like be black, right?
Yes, yeah.
You know,
The teacher can act like your mama in schools
like,
like that. Yes.
like, but then once I left Baltimore and moved to DC and started working at a white institution, there there was conflict because I was living my best life being black, right? Like, and I wasn't gonna allow anybody to like make me feel less than or had me feel like I'm being treated a particular way, And so, and because I kept thinking always, you get the privilege of getting to meet me. You get the
Ooh.
privilege of sitting around me. You get the privilege to be in my classroom because you're being presented with an opportunity to learn and gain knowledge that you never got before. And if I hadn't come across your path, you wouldn't have gotten it, right?
Mm.
And so me as a black man coming to a classroom of all white students in it, you're fortunate. You are fortunate to have this opportunity to have me bring my lived experience into the classroom and the way I interpret what we're learning and talking about through a different lens that hopefully will challenge you, that then you'll go home and challenge your parents.
Yes.
And as we continue to challenge all these white people, hopefully some change will be coming, right? Like even then, the same way I try to use my work, my artwork to change, I also saw my role as an educator to also push change, right? Like I'm always speaking in a way to uplift Black people and the Black experience, right? And so like as I progressed and people started recognizing the work that I was doing and like, oh, well, this must be a magical Negro here. We better keep on to him, we better keep like find opportunities for him. Okay, I'm gonna step into that role, but I'm gonna use my influence and what you're giving me to like continue to push the agenda to elevate Black people and Black voices, right? And so I found myself being the first at that school to hold lots of roles in administration. The first Black person to do this. We created roles for me, right? That weren't even like were created for me, right? And so like that to me is also a sign of purpose too, though, right? Like I was
Yeah.
doing what I was meant to be doing in that moment, and because I was, God kept enlarging my territory, kept presenting
Yeah.
opportunities for me to gain more, and I'm so thankful for that because I have an understanding of people and um, how to operate and move within spaces that I don't know I would have had any other way, right? And like, and also, right, like being an artist and working in the art world is predominantly white, right? And so and so I feel like that the skills I learned as an educator being in predominantly white spaces and navigating that, I'm using those same skills now to
Yeah.
navigate the art world here in New York, right? Like because Black and brown faces are starting to like come into the scene, and rightfully so, like over the past maybe 8 years or so, maybe 10 years, right? Like it's starting to really take um hold, but like there's still a lot of whiteness. And so I take those experiences of like how to navigate this scene, right? And were there moments that people said things that were racist or offensive? Yes. But did I check them on it? Yes. It's a great opportunity. Like I feel as a teacher, we always say all the time, every situation is an opportunity to learn, to
Yeah.
grow, right? And so no matter what it is, so like, although white lady, you just walked up and started touching my locks, offensive white lady, we can have a moment where I can teach you in this moment, in front of everybody that just saw this happen, why maybe you shouldn't do that, right?
Yes.
Or maybe to a parent who mistook me for another Black person on faculty. I'm like, that's not me. I know we're both Black, but I'm the other one. Like I always look for opportunities to like to help educate, and present that. So is there some trauma probably from there? Some stuff I fully haven't like resolved yet? Probably, right? But like it will come up when it needs to come up, right? And
Yeah.
I will address it and heal that. But I really do look at it as I was fortunate enough to have those experiences, even if they were moments of frustration and moments of being angry. I still feel fortunate to have those.
Yeah. No, that's powerful and it's beautiful because I myself have really challenged, how I view just race in general because I know it's like almost like a made up thing. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
like we're
it
all
is.
humans, right? So it's really made up.
Yeah,
And I've really been challenging myself doing hard work. Like, what's the quality of your heart? And dealing with people on that level, right? So like it makes it really hard to generalize any one person when you start thinking of individual interactions with people. You know what I'm saying? And we're all so complex. So I just love the fact that you're open to that and you're open to saying let's have a conversation about what just happened. Like I don't have to hate you or be angry with you, but let me let you know my boundary and maintain it. Let me establish this with you and maintain this, letting you know this may be a boundary for someone else or not, but you can't
yeah,
put us in a
right,
box because
right,
our skin tone is similar. You know what I'm saying?
right.
I know that happened to a Karis one time at work. This was her first job, like I call corporate, outside of working for family. And she was working at Publix, and she said this older white woman came up to her and just, I mean, can I touch you? She said, no, no, you cannot. She
Yeah.
was 16 at the time, and she was like, Mama, who does that? And honestly, I surprisingly have never, that I can remember, have that happen to me. So I was like, well, what did you do? Because I know my child. I was like, did you? Well, you didn't get fired, thank God, because she could have responded in a way that she would have gotten fired. But she was like, she said, she told the lady, I don't know who you are, so you can't touch my hair, period. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just her having the confidence to say that to an older white woman as a young, like a teenage black girl. It
Mm.
showed me how things are changing, because in the South, as her mother, when she told me that, I was like, I tensed up, because I was like, oh, what kind of repercussions might she get for standing up for herself, really? Because
Yeah.
I've seen it happen
Yeah.
so much, right? I was like, be careful. She might have said something to the manager, and in my mind, I'm thinking, how can you tell on a child because she doesn't want you to touch her hair and you're a perfect stranger? But it happens, right? But then I also had to check my conditioning on and realize some of the unresolved things I have to even kind of go down that rabbit hole just from that story. Um, but it just goes back to some of the things that we navigate through in the world. You know what I'm saying? Just being us. But I really like, I guess, I'm gonna ask you this, and then we'll get ready to wind it down for this time. But I definitely know I want you to come back. I want you to come back as much as you can come back, okay? Because we do have a lot of things to talk about.
Okay.
But what would you say specifically to the black man, the brother that's working every day on that job? Like, he's providing, getting by, but it's something like you talked about, that creativity we have and we haven't tapped in. So if you had a chance to talk to any brother in particular, but just to encourage, and I, not to exclude anyone, but our brothers, our black men really need encouragement, and like a focus, a specific focus on you. You know what I'm, does that make sense? Like,
Mhm.
so what would you say to your brothers to encourage them? Because I believe that, like, you look great, like you look like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, like your skin, like your fit, like you look like you're where you need to be. I know life isn't perfect, but
Mm.
I also know that you're clear that you're called to be an artist the way that you do it, and that looks great on you. And I would love for other people to try that on. So
Yeah.
what would you say to a brother to encourage him to try it on?
Yeah. Well, that's a really tough question. Oh man, it's a tough question. So hopefully, um, I have an answer for you. First, I would say, brother, I see you. Like,
Mm,
I see you, because I think that we often don't feel seen, right? We don't feel seen and affirmed just for who we are as being like a person, right? And so I first was like, brother, yo, I see you. Like, no, I really see you. Like, I see you, right? And then I would just say like, what you're doing has it has is a reason that you're doing the thing you're doing. And if you can stay focused, and I know it's like, I don't want to sound like really cliche, but like, if you can stay focused and really know what your path is and do the work to know what your path is, so that you don't get distracted, so that outside voices can't come in and rattle your foundation and get you off track, right? Like, not allowing like your friends to distract you or tell you like what they would do, but like, their path isn't your path, right? And like, yeah, they might be able to give you some good advice, and like, you might take some of that meat and throw away the bones, but if you can get to a place to like know in yourself, like when you can know the voice that's guiding you, whether that's your intuition, whether you call that the Holy Spirit, whether you call that God, whether you call that ancestral voices, whether you call that Muhammad, like whoever you want to call that, right? Like when you can get to a place to know that I am being guided to do these things, to do this thing, and nothing will get me off track, right? And like, yeah, there are moments where like you might stumble and like lose a little bit of faith and go, because you're not seeing the outcome. But I promise, like, if you just stay committed and diligent to it, right, like you will begin to see the benefits. It's gonna be hard, and it is hard. Life is hard. I mean, living is not for the weak. Like, if you're gonna live this life, it is not for the weak, and like you're gonna have to like find ways of coping and dealing with it. And then, brothers, like you have to also have a network. People are gonna speak into your life. So, like, are your friends surrounding you? Like, are they encouraging you, or are they distractions? If they're distractions, you gotta let them go. Like I even have some friends that I've had my entire life, right? Like from childhood to now, that I've started to say, oh, we gotta find ways to part ways because no longer are we on the same going in similar directions, right? And,
Yeah.
and that's hard to do that, but I also recognize that if I'm gonna get where I need to go, I have to have people around me who are going to support me and encourage me and have my best interest. Like I don't want friends who are undercover haters, right? Like who don't want
Ooh.
to succeed, right? Like so I want the friends who are just as excited when I have an opening as just like excited when they have an opening, right? I want to like I don't want a friend to be like, oh, well, how you get that, or why you get that, right? Like I want to be like, yo, I'm glad you got that, and I'm excited for you. I want to celebrate that with you, right? So like I think that's also important that we have to have people around us who are gonna encourage us, right? And you have to find moments for self care. Like I am the biggest advocate of self care. Self care says it is all right to be selfish, and being selfish is all right. It is all right to say, no, I don't want to do this. No, I don't want to do that. Or yes, I do want to do this. Or yes, I do want to do that. Right? Like you gotta find the things that will speak into your life and that are connected to your purpose. And if you're not doing that, I think you're gonna find yourself on that hamster wheel of just running in circles, not being able to find a way to get off of it because you're not bringing in the things that are needed, right? Like I have a set of really close um, brothers that like I text all the time, and I just go, "How you doing today?" Like checking in. Let's just check in because I know that we have been conditioned culturally not to do that, not to talk about it, right? Not to talk about our emotions, not to like be vulnerable. And we only allow that in certain spaces, right? You allow that like when you play sports to be like vulnerable, like show your emotions, right? Like the only few spaces where black men get to like do that. And a lot of it's cultural, a lot of it comes out of like being enslaved, right? And like this idea of the role you played on the plantation and being disconnected from family, like all of that. I get that. Like that's why I say there's so much trauma that we have in our bodies that we have to address. And so to those brothers, I'm saying you gotta like have your network. You gotta have your core brothers that are like gonna be for real. Like let's go have a beer, let's go have a drink, like whatever it is. Like let's go eat. Like let me just check in and make sure make sure you good, right? Like you cool. And if you're not, then let's talk about that, right? Like some of my most powerful conversations that have been life changing have been with like my guy friends, but like we've just been like honest, right? And like to have another dude be like, yo, like I see you and like, yo, you better than this or you can do greater than this. Like, I mean, there are no words for that. Like there's no words for like how
Yeah.
you can pour into the life of somebody else, right? And so that's important as well. And I guess the last thing I would say, like, it is fine. I said like be selfish and find the things that like feed you, right? But like take up something, find something that's going to be just for you, right? Like there's this whole new wave of like black men doing yoga, right? Like, and you might be like, oh, I don't want to do that. Bullshit. I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to do no yoga, right? But like, but find something that's gonna like center you, right? Because we have been taught for so long not to choose ourselves. We've been taught for so long not to find an anchor, right? And like, if you want to be healthy and whole, you got to find your anchor, right? Like, and I have a really good friend that says he finds his anchor, he finds his holy place, like in playing lacrosse. Like when he's out on the pitch playing lacrosse, that's where he feels most connected to God. So if like playing sports is like where you feel most connected to God, then like you got to
Mhm.
take opportunity to do so. If it's playing basketball, whatever it is, right? Like, whatever that thing is that nurtures you, that feeds you, you got to make time and space for it, because when we do that, open ourselves up to other possibilities and things that can come, right? So like you and your job hustling your 9 to 5 grind, right? Like, but you're also trying to get another thing started. That those things will happen because when we take ourselves, when we take care of ourselves, when we deal with our stuff, then that's when I believe God opens up for more things to happen for us. Like, because I really be thinking sometimes, God's like, Desmond, why would I give you that if everything you got right now was messy? Like, that's just gonna get messy, right? So
Yes.
like once you get things cleaned up, then and you made room for it, now I can give you more things, right? But like those things can't come until you do your work, right? And so and that's also like mending past relationships, right? Like healing past hurts, right? Like if you are if you have relationships that have not been addressed and that's out there hanging, then that back is gonna keep you weighted down. Like you're not gonna get where you
Yes.
need to go because you haven't done the work to like to resolve that stuff. If you know you've mistreated people, or you feel like you were mistreated by others and you haven't addressed that stuff with them, then like you're gonna be stuck, right? And so I I really don't want to sound like this like greeting card, right? But it's like, brothers, if you want to be healthy and whole, you got to do your work. You got to do the thing that's gonna like free you from it, right? And like, and I keep saying this, but like, we have not been given permission to do that, and
Mm-mm.
then you have to feel that you are important enough to do the work, and that you deserve it, that you deserve to live a life that's healthy and whole and full of prosperity and full of all the things you want to attract to yourself, right? Like, and that's another thing, right? Like the law of attraction, like you will attract those things if your mindset is negative, you're living a negative life and whatever, you're gonna attract all that negativity, right? But
Yeah.
when you begin to shift your thinking and it becomes positive and becomes loving, then all those things will come to you. I
Yeah.
don't know anybody who doesn't want to feel seen, loved, and affirmed, and know what they have to say matters to somebody, right? Like, and so find people in your life that will do that for you, will hold space for you,
Mm.
whatever that looks like, and whoever that looks like. You gotta find your community to do that, because
Mm.
we can't walk this thing alone. Like we can't do life alone. We were not meant to do life alone. We were not designed to do life alone. We are called into community. We are called into relationship with one another, right? And so don't be so big and bad and so hard that you can't let people in, because you're gonna live a life of being alone then, or a life of not being really fulfilled and having all that's meant for you if you can't do that, which is hard for us to hear, hard for us to hear as guys. Like we don't want to hear that, like we think it's a sign of weakness or whatever, but like, nah, I consider vulnerability being a great strength, right? Like,
Yes.
yo, that's a great strength.
It's a
You know,
superpower.
it's
I
superpower.
said vulnerability is a superpower.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Desmond. That is that was one, you did not sound like a greeting card. You didn't. I feel like thank you. Thank you for that because I feel like it's almost like being in a drought. From a from my perspective, let me speak for me. It seems like that what you just said is not said enough. So it's almost like watering a plant that has been in drought. So if you wouldn't put the normal amount of water on that plant, that earth is too dry. You have to add more because it's completely depleted. It's not at like the normal saturation level. It is dry.
Mm,
And I feel like that's where a lot of our men are. It's like feel very deserted, like I'm in a desert. So in my mind, if my lawn is well watered, that lawn won't require as much pouring on as a lawn that has been just completely deprived of water and what it needed. So that lawn is going to need to be watered more, maybe
yeah,
more consistently, more times a day to get it where it needs to be. And as I say that to you, I'm being reminded that's why we're doing what we're doing,
yeah,
because God loves his children, and he's putting us all in position to do the work. Because like when you look at your artwork, you don't have to journal, you don't have to talk to a therapist, you don't have to do yoga. Desmond's artwork is hard work. I can like just put your eyes on it. It's therapeutic. It's gonna bring some things out. It's like a detox. It
mm,
might not look as good, but it's better for you because you took it in. And that's, and a refreshing all at the same time. So I just thank you. I thank you for being here. I thank you for holding the space with me. I when people say create space, God told me one day you can't create something. It's already been created. All we're doing is holding space for those that are committed to doing this work. So that's what the Heartline is about. And I feel like today's
mm,
conversation speaks to that. It just speaks to holding space for those who want to do this work, because everybody doesn't have people to talk to, everybody doesn't have people to come to. And I see the Heartline as being a space that people can come to and listen to real conversations so
mm,
that they can in turn build personal, relational, and financial wealth, but through authentic living. Because people out here in relationship, right? They out here with money and they're struggling and they're at their wits end and they can't take it anymore. And God, enough is enough. That's why we're being called forward. So
yep.
I thank you for calling me forward, Mr. Beach. I really thank you for
Nah, thank
being
you.
who you are, and just tell us a little bit, if you can. Let the people know where your studio is, how can they find you, and any other information you'd like us to know about you before we close out.
Okay, so my studio is in Sunset Park, which is in Brooklyn. It's at the Army Terminals there here in New York. You can find me at desmondbeach.com, or you can find me at on Instagram at Desmond Beach. So there we go.
He is so humble, y'all. Sometimes like he's not biting. I mean, his artwork is all over the world,
Uh,
and you can find him in Brooklyn. So
well,
you make
yes. Well, and like if you go to Instagram, you'll see different places where my work is currently right now on display. But yeah, see,
he's
I just want to put the work out there, and people can come see it. Yeah, but yeah, find me on Instagram. That's why I'm most up to date of like what's happening, what's going on.
I will, and I'm gonna say this. Thank you so much for sharing that. This is the thing I want to say to you. You your artwork is powerful, and your voice must accompany it because it's as powerful, and it has to go out. Those vibrations have to go out into the earth. So I feel like this is on record confirmation. You've been feeling that stirring to speak, to sing, to do whatever it is that you've been called to do. And hey, I came by today as confirmation that you got to do that. And that's why you're going to be a resident guest on the Heartline.
Okay.
And any place else you need to be,
Okay.
okay, I'll support you in being obedient in that. Anytime you want to come on here, just cousin, let's record and we will do that. But
Okay.
but we gotta hear, we need you that book the book and all the other things that you be working on. We got to get those things going because you are a voice for this this hour, this season in our lives. I feel like we are. I feel like we've been being groomed for this, like you said, all these years for
Mm.
such a time as this.
Yeah.
And I'm just thankful. I've talked to you about this when I initially brought up and asked you if you would come on. You were like, "Yep, just let me know." We pushed through it, despite everything you had going on and I had going on, and we've had this has been absolutely amazing,
Yeah.
and I am so excited to see how this continues to unfold. So, thank you so much, Desmond,
Ah,
for
thank you.
being here.
Yeah.
Thank you for being my wonderful, wonderful big cousin. I gotta throw that in there. Y'all just don't understand. Our other cousins might be. I love y'all too now, but y'all know how me and Desmond go, so don't act like you don't know that. Okay. All right. We're gonna leave that there. This
Right.
is Adelaide Brown,
Yeah.
your heart coach. This has been the Heartline Heart Talk with Adelaide, and we will see you on our next episode.